Good morning from Sydney in Australia to Flute Q&A number 11 with me, Jane Kavanagh. I'm a flute teacher and I teach flute players just like you how to transform their flute playing by learning the tiny changes, the tiny adjustments of proper technique to your playing. So there we go. We have 5 questions today from Michelle, Gary, Benny, Jen and Jocelyn. All very good questions. Firstly, hi, an extra special hi to you if you're one of the brand new students in the brand new Flute Academy that opened a month ago. It's so great to see everyone's progress that they're making in the Academy. It's really awesome after just a few weeks. Okay, the first question comes from Michelle. I've been playing flute for 20 years and she writes 32F, and I think that means you're a 32-year-old female. Over the past few years, I've developed a nerve condition that requires the use of a wheelchair, so standing to play is no longer an option. What is the best seated posture for playing the flute? That's a really good question, Michelle, and luckily the flute is an instrument that can be played standing and seated, and it doesn't actually matter. Like, there's no better way to do it. The most important thing, so some teachers traditionally teach standing up. Some teachers teach sitting down. More teach standing up than sitting down. But if you look at professional performances, orchestras, bands, everyone is sitting down. So there is genuinely no better version, whether you stand up or sit down. But the most important thing is that you have the right posture, and that's exactly what you're asking. Hang on, I'll just get these lilies out of the way so I don't actually poke them with my flute. So the most important thing, Michelle, is when you're playing the flute, you will notice, and I mentioned the Flute Academy. In the Flute Academy there's the 45-day flute transformation, and one of the modules is all about alignment of yourself. So this is like the tip of the iceberg, but it's enough to get you going. When you play the flute, you'll notice that, see how I'm facing forward to you and my shoulders are facing forward, my knees are facing forward. But then when I put my flute up, hang on, lilies. When I put my flute up, see my shoulders are no longer facing forward. They've actually twisted. So that means that my torso is twisted. We don't want this. So when you're seated, anyone who's seated, and you will see this in people that play in orchestras and bands, they will always turn their chair or their body to the right a little bit. You can turn I would suggest you turn your whole wheelchair and face it to the right just a little bit. It's kind of like offset. You know, it's not an exact degree thing, but I would say 30 degrees approximately. And the reason for that is that now my shoulders are in line with my hips and my knees. So it's like my body is facing to the right, but then when you put your flute up, the flute and your face faces forward. That's the most important thing, honestly, for when you're sitting. You do the same thing when you're standing, but instead of turning your chair or your body, instead of turning your chair, you turn your body or your feet to the right. So that should get you going, Michelle. Yeah, good choice. Glad you're learning the flute. Well, you've been learning for 20 years, so. The next question comes from Gary. He says, how do you trill B-flat? That's an easy question for me to answer, Gary. So hopefully this will give you like an instant result. So firstly, what note are you trilling to? If your key signature has a B-flat in it, and it has maybe E-flat, maybe A-flat, more to the point, if there's nothing affecting the C in the key signature, so there's no C sharp, so there's not going to be a C sharp if there's flats. But now I'm making it complicated. Let me try the easy way. Okay, here's the short answer. B-flat to C, you trill like this. So the B-flat key on the bottom, and you trill B-flat to C like this. And up high, same fingerings. Now, if on the off chance, and this is probably not the case for you if you're asking this question, but let's say, for example, you have a C flat in the key signature, then your B flat doesn't trill to a C, it trills to a C flat, which is a B natural. And you would do B flat to B natural, C flat trill like this. So that's trilling B flat to C flat. chances are, Gary, if you're asking the question of how to trill B-flat, it's probably B-flat to C, which is this one. So there you go. Sorry for making that complicated. But we got there in the end. We made it easy in the end. Benny asks, how do I best hold the flute for balance and control, especially while playing the E-flat major scale? So that is an excellent question. Look, it's so excellent, Benny, that when I made the 45-day flute transformation, there's a whole module called stability. It's not called hand position, it's called stability. Stability of the flute, and there's about 5 lessons in it, because when you learn the right hand position, it's not being good or having good posture or looking nice or playing the flute the right way, you know, all in inverted commas. It's all about stability. So whenever you learn hand position, if you're learning it properly, if you're being taught hand position properly, the reason is so that you have a stable flute. And the reason you want a stable flute is so that your hands, your fingers, do not have to grip on to stop your flute from rolling. That's if it's unstable. Now it sounds like if you were saying on E-flat major scale, especially on E-flat major scale, how do you, hang on, what did you say? How do you best hold the flute for balance and control? If you're asking on E-flat major scale, there's a very good chance that your pinky, which is used in E-flat major and needs to be quite under control in E-flat major, there's a good chance that you're using your pinky to balance the flute. Now this is not good. If you're using your pinky to balance the flute, but your pinky also needs to be free to move up and down over the whole range of the flute, not just E-flat major, you're kind of, I was going to say you're in trouble. You're not in trouble. People do it all the time and people play the flute well. But if you want to play it better, a lot better, you want to free up your pinky so that it's not balancing the flute. This pinky is not supposed to balance the flute. It's supposed to be free. Day 9 of the 45-day flute transformation is called, what did I call it? Natural. I wrote the lesson. I just momentarily forgot what I called it. The natural balance of the flute. And that teaches you how to literally get the balance of the flute in a natural position, which frees up your fingers as much as possible, including your pinky, to work freely. That means that your hands don't need to grip on, your fingers don't need to grip on, because it's as balanced as possible, and it frees up your fingers to move more quickly. So this is really good for flute playing because it speeds up your fingers. So hopefully that gives you some insight into the fact that you want to get your flute into a position where it doesn't feel like it's going to roll. You want it to feel as balanced as possible, and then you sort of add your fingers and you keep them free. Now it's easier said than done because you're in a habit of playing the way that you play. If anyone's watching this who is in the Flute Academy, you'll probably agree that the step-by-step approach in it to overcoming that feeling of gripping onto your flute is actually really helpful. It is really helpful because it's so, it can be difficult to overcome a habit that you're in. But I want you to take that piece of fundamental information, Benny, that you need your flute balanced before you add your fingers. Your fingers need to sit on top freely. So I hope that gives you a bit of insight into which way to start rolling your flute and how to start holding it so that you can move your fingers, more freely and have more control when you're playing E-flat major scale. The next question comes from Jen. How do I get a clear B, third line, or first B in your Scottish song? Jen, I think you're referring to the Scottish Soldier that I recorded on YouTube last year. I've put a link to it here for you. So I'm going to answer this question as if it is that song that you're referring to, because I had a look and that's the only Scottish, it's the only one with Scottish in the title. I've done a few different Scottish tunes. So if this isn't the song that you're talking about, ask another question in the Q&A and I'll ask it in a future Q&A. So I'm going to answer this for Scottish Soldier. Oh, I printed this out to play you. Hang on, I've got to get my printout. And I also didn't think this through. I don't have my music stand up. Okay. All right. Here we go. Can we do this? No. Oh dear. Hang on. I have a solution. Sticky tape. So I'm just going to play you a little bit of the Scottish Soldier just so that you know what Jen is talking about, or hopefully talking about. And I need to put my glasses on so I can actually see. So this is the Scottish Soldier. It's a nice little Scottish melody, and then I'll answer your question, Jen. And it goes on. I've also put a link for you to anyone who's watching this who wants to print out that song. You can print it out for free on flutetunes.com, best website ever. It's so good for free flute music, legally free, because it's all out of copyright, which is why it's free. So how do I get a clear B third line or the first beat in your Scottish song? So this piece has B-flat, so I'm actually wondering, Jen, if you're referring to a different song. So sorry if this is not the right one. But anyway, how to get a clear B-flat. If your question was how do you get a clear sound on the flute all over, I would answer this totally differently. Because you're saying how do you get a clear B-flat, I'm thinking you mean, it sounds like there might be something off with your flute, because if all of your other notes are clear but not your B-flat, that points to there being something not quite right with your flute. So if it is B-flat, that is the problem. I want you to have a look at something. So if you play B-flat like this with your thumb on there, then I want you to have a look at this key here. There's a very good chance that this key is not closing properly. So it should close automatically when you have your B-flat thumb on. If this is not closing properly, hang on, sorry, my face is like out of the way. If this is not closing properly, see if you can take your flute to a service person and get it fixed. It's a really simple fix. If you play B-flat like this, then it's still the same thing. Closing this B-flat key, this F key here, automatically closes the same key I was talking about, and check if it's actually closing properly, because it might not be. And the other thing I want you to try is whichever B-flat you were using, whether you were doing this one or whether you're doing this one, try the other one, because sometimes when there's something not quite right, so for example, if the problem is the link between this key and this key, then using that B-flat will totally overcome it. You still need to get your flute fixed, but it's like a short-term fix. Just use a different B-flat. And it's a good opportunity for you to practice using the other B-flat as well. So Jen, if I totally did not answer your question because you're actually talking about a different song, just put it in the Q&A at www.flute.school/ask, and I'll answer it in a future Q&A. The last question comes from Jocelyn. Are you able to direct me to sites which feature chamber music for flutes and other combinations of instruments at all levels of development? Yes, I can. Absolutely. I just had to check I'm recording because I always panic that it stopped recording or that I never pressed record in the first place. So there's two websites, Jocelyn. Flute Tunes is free. It's fantastic. I've put a link below your question for you. If you go onto flutetunes.com, click Browse Tunes in the menu, and then click by instrumentation. And then it comes up with a bunch of options. It's like flute solo, flute and piano, flute duet, flute trio, flute choir, flute and guitar, flute and harp. There's a bunch of things. However, it's not as extensive as what you might be asking for. So the other option is Sheet Music Plus, and I've put a link for you below your question as well. This is where you buy music, and it's more extensive with the combinations of instruments that you might be looking for. So there you go. Have a look at Flute Tunes first because it's free, and then have a look at Sheet Music Plus, and you might actually find exactly what you're looking for. And they have different pieces, by the way, on each website, different repertoire. There's a bit of overlap, but it's quite different. So that's it. That's the Q&A for today. If you have a question, just go to www.flute.school/ask, And I would be happy to include your question in one of the upcoming Flute Q&As. See you later.